Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
What are the top 10 best pay-per-views of the year 2019? Hello, you're watching WrestleTalk. I'm Pete and Laurie Blake. This is Chopper Pete Quinnell. And just to say up front that this is a list of the 10 best pay-per-views, sure. However, 5 of the best pay-per-views this year were named Takeover something something.
Yes.
So for the sake of variety, we've chucked out a couple of the takeovers and thrown in a few other things. Because otherwise I'll just be saying the names Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano,
Tommaso
Ciampa again. So yeah, we've taken a few creative liberties, but I think you'll find most of the takeovers have made their ways into our honourable mentions, which Pete will go through now.
Yeah, so we'll run through some honourable mentions here. Impact Wrestling's Homecoming was a great show. Just missed out on the top 10. New Japan's Dominion, also great. King of Pro Wrestling 2019. Survivor Series, when NXT won, was cool. AEW's All Out, just missed the top 10 as well. And NXT Takeover 25, which features probably one of my favorite matches of all time, which is Adam Cole Gargano, where Cole wins. However, the rest of the card isn't quite as good as some of the other takeovers of the year. But we'll start things off, though, with a takeover at number 10. NXT Takeover Phoenix. So this was the one that took place before the Royal Rumble this year. Ciampa facing Aleister Black and beating him. The high point of the night really came when Johnny Gargano defeated Ricochet for the North American title, which was an incredible match. And it was mirrored in the finish with, right at the end, it was the swinging DDT that he won with. And as Ricochet was getting to his feet, he goes, "I win," and does that. And then later on in the match, Ciampa goes, "I win," before he hits his finish on Black. It was like a nice mirror thing, and it furthered their feud with the whole puppetry thing that Ciampa was doing at the time.
It was
awesome.
like sort of cemented Johnny's descent into darkness.
Exactly.
It was a really good little bit of storytelling.
Exactly.
And it's such a shame they never got to have that match.
I know. At number 9, though, we get something slightly different. We get WWE SummerSlam. SummerSlam.
Which I think is one, like, you know, there's an argument to be made that no main roster pay-per-view should really be on this list, but it's wrestling.
That's a good argument to be made.
I think you've got to take the idea that the WWE stuff for the Raw and SmackDown things exists in its own universe in which that's how pay-per-views are done. I believe that SummerSlam was actually a really good one. This is the one we got the Fiend debut against Finn Balor.
Genuinely one of the greatest debuts of a new character ever in wrestling.
Yep, and also it's before the red light started coming in as well. So there's that to sort of take into account. That was where he first did the neck snap. It was like this was like the height of the Fiend. This is before we knew that it could turn sour to some degree. The main event was Seth Rollins taking on Brock Lesnar for the Universal title and winning it back, I think, right?
Yes.
Like, he comes out hot and he's like basically countering everything Brock's doing. Brock's trying to do all these suplexes and he's flipping his way out of them, flipping his way out of them. Then Brock gets like a modicum of control.
Yeah.
And Brock's like, "Oh, you're getting the suplexes, but I'm also going to spin you around by your rib tape." It was a lot of fun for for a Seth Rollins Brock Lesnar third rematch, whatever it was by this point.
Yeah. Goldberg got his redemption on this show as well, having really quite fun match against Dolph Ziggler here, when after the match Ziggler would come on the mic and be like, "Oh, you can't take me," and Goldberg would come down and spear him again, and then he'd go, and then Ziggler would call him out again, and then he'd spear him again. It was funny.
This is the one that Ziggler was asking for more time on.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
He did not get it, but that was good for everyone else.
But it was still a very funny match. So overall, it was a pretty good card. But now, going to number 8, we're going right back to NXT. In the most recent takeover, NXT Takeover Wargames, which was the night before Survivor Series. And this one, of course, is most well known for the 2 Wargames matches.
Yeah.
The female Wargames match, which was the very story-driven one, when you had it was a 2v4 because Dakota Kai turned heel, beat up Tegan Nox. They took both of them out of the match. Then you had Ripley and Candice versus the rest of Team Baszler, which was a great story-based one. And then you had the male one, which was very spot-driven. Isn't Keith Lee great match? Which is always fun. But then you also had Finn Balor and Matt Riddle, which was great because Balor just turned heel, so it was his first outing as his new heel character properly.
Yeah, I loved the Wargames card. I thought Wargames, especially the Wargames matches, the story of the what happened in the women's one was amazing. It managed to cement Rhea Ripley as the sort of just the biggest deal in the women's roster in WWE, I think. Yeah. And they made a star, and now she is the star.
Yeah, exactly. It was fantastic. At number 7, we've gone for WrestleMania 35. So this one, Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, opened the card, which is insane, which was a really nice surprise, and Rollins won, which was great, because there were 3 people the fans wanted to see win heading into this show. Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, and Becky Lynch. And all 3 of them won, which is actually insane.
This was wish fulfillment, the pay-per-view.
Absolutely. So you had the peak of Kofi Mania, him beating Daniel Bryan at the show. You had Becky Lynch winning in the first ever WrestleMania women's main event. Granted, it was botched, wasn't great. Rollins beat Lesnar. And we got the best match in wrestling history, Shane McMahon versus The Miz.
Yes, I love that match.
Which was incredible.
I will go to bat for that match any day of the week.
So
I think
good.
the argument to be made here is like, yes, overall, if you take WrestleMania and all of its component parts, it's not an amazing pay-per-view. However, from Seth and Brock pretty much up to Kofi, it's a wicked pay-per-view.
It's really good.
Really good. I think sometimes what makes the best pay-per-view is the thing you're really excited for. And to me, WrestleMania 35 was one of the most exciting pay-per-views that I've watched this year. I went into it like, I cannot wait to see what happens. I genuinely was emotional when Kofi Kingston won the title. And I don't think much else in wrestling has sort of stirred that level of like enthusiasm from me. So I think WrestleMania 35 absolutely deserves a spot.
Yep. Coming in at number 6, we're going over to AEW for AEW Full Gear. So this took place in November. You and I did live reactions for the show. And I thought this was an awesome card because capped off with Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega in that lights out match, which was just absolutely bonkers. Like going through glass and barbed wire and
that barbed
chains
wire
and
bed.
The barbed wire chain bed.
What was it? He's like, it's just
know.
a plinth of barbed wire. So you're going on that.
That was
the broken glass.
An unbelievable match in so many ways. And you had Jericho versus Cody with MJF throwing in the towel and turning heel. Like that was a massive moment after a great match as well. You had Proud and Powerful and the Young Bucks to open up the show as well, which was just bonkers.
Which also involved the Rock and Roll Express and Ricky Morton doing a Canadian destroyer.
An assisted Canadian destroyer.
Heavily assisted. Yeah, but then he did an unassisted suicide dive. So
that's true, yeah.
I genuinely think that is one of the greatest moments in wrestling this year.
It's so good.
And I'm pushing for it very hard to be on the list of best wrestling moments. I just thought it was wicked. This was kind of like AEW going like, here's just what a regular AEW pay-per-view could look like. This is just a bog standard, normal person's pay-per-view. And it was insanely good.
It was
like
crazy good.
So good.
Yeah.
I just think that's such a good it's such a confidence builder for you as a fan to be like, oh no, they're really capable. They really understand how to put together these shows. They know the sort of thing that are going to get people talking. And my lord, did the Jon Moxley Kenny Omega match get people talking? Like, was it too far? Was it too far? I don't know. Like, maybe it was, but I thought it was very gripping television.
It was, yeah. It was outstanding. Moving on to number 5, we're going all the way back to the beginning. We're going to Royal Rumble 2019. This was a great card for several reasons, mainly because Becky Lynch and Asuka opened up the card to a great match, which Asuka won clean, which was great. But then Becky went on to win the Women's Royal Rumble later on, and Seth Rollins won the Men's Rumble later on as well. And you had great matches like Lesnar versus Balor. You had Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, which was when Eric Rowan debuted, which was a bit of a not great finish. However, it was a great card, and there wasn't really like, oh, that was a bad match. On the whole card. There just wasn't one. This
Rumble had really good, because of the fact that none of it really mattered. It just was like, well, we'll just have fun with it and we'll do lots of fun stuff. The Rumbles themselves, I thought, like, the Women's Rumble was really fun. They got, like, a load of legends to return and all these big moments and all this fun stuff. And then the Men's Rumble, they went even crazier. We're like, Nia Jax is there.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Because why not? RKO Super Kick. Get out of here. 619.
I just think that's what's so good about the Rumble as sort of an event, is because you actually go into it going like, I know that I'm going to be surprised at some point during this show.
And I'm probably going to have fun.
Yeah.
For number 4, we're heading back to NXT because we're going to NXT TakeOver Toronto, which was the night before SummerSlam. which was an unbelievable card. This had some awesome stuff in it. Street Profits managed to retain their tag team championships against the Undisputed Era to open the show, which was great. Io Shirai had just turned heel and was facing Candice LeRae in their kind of grudge match after she turned heel on NXT TV, which was an amazing way to kick off her heel character. It was an awesome, awesome match.
And also amazing to see Candice actually get some takeover time and crush it. This was such a good match.
It was such a good match. Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano in the 2 out of 3 falls match, where the stipulation would change at every fall. William Regal decided the third one, which was a cage surrounded by weapons.
A weapons cage.
Because why not? And then the finish
I
came.
was just waiting for him to be like, it's in Blackpool.
Get on a plane.
We're going to Blackpool.
Go to Blackpool. Fight on the plane
That's
over
it.
there. And then we'll fight over there too. But then Cole and Gargano fell off the top of the cage through a table to finish the match, which was just a bonkers match. A really fun card overall. And it set up people nicely for the great night that was SummerSlam the following night.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I mean,
Such a great show.
and I think this is the thing. I think like any of the takeovers that had a Cole and Gargano match on them could have a place on. Like I could have just been 1, 2, and 3 on this list because those matches are just straight up and down the 3 of the best matches that happened this year.
Absolutely.
If your name isn't Will Ospreay,
Exactly.
I think that's just those are some of the greatest wrestling I've ever seen.
Speaking of Will Ospreay, going into our top 3, number 3 of the year, Wrestle Kingdom 13, all the way back January 4th.
Which deserves to be on the list purely for Will Ospreay versus Kota Ibushi because that was
a bloody match.
Insane.
It's absolute. Seriously, if you haven't watched it, it's 18 minutes long, but it feels like it's 40. The amount of spots that they cram into that match is unbelievable. Those two are 2 of the best wrestlers on the planet, doing exactly what they do best. They're so quick, so talented. They just go spot.
Speed that's the scariest thing. It's the fact that it starts off like mildly slow of like, here's a flip. Oh, well, I'm going to do a flip now. All right, well, I've done a twist in my flip. I'll do a twisty flip then. I'm going to do 2 twists and 2 flips. And it just goes like, it's just like, what? Where will it end?
Yeah. Where does the escalation stop? We had some other really fun matches as well. Juice Robinson and Cody, Taiji Ishimori and Kushida, before Kushida went over to NXT later that year. Jay White defeating Okada, Naito beating Jericho, winning the Intercontinental Championship back, and of course, capped off, Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Kenny Omega for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. An unreal match. An absolutely unreal match. And something that obviously a lot of the elite guys would be losing their matches because they're going to be going on to AEW not too long after. But this just capped off. This was in Dave Meltzer's star ratings, which of course isn't the be-all end-all. But in Dave Meltzer's star ratings, this was tied the highest rated match of the year at 5.75 stars because it was just an incredible match. It was a clash of philosophies between them, with Tanahashi having to wrestle more of Omega's style in order to get the one-up on him, which was like, it's such a brilliant story, so perfectly told with 2 of the best wrestlers in the world.
And I think if you look at the whole card of Wrestle Kingdom as well, and the fact that like obviously the elite guys are all leaving to go and do AEW, what a lovely way to kind of cap off a heck of a run in New Japan for all of them as well. Like I just think it's like, it's a fantastic show, and it's amazing that they're all part of it, and they went on to do great things also later in the year.
Exactly, yeah. What a great card. But now we move on to number 2.
Number 2.
The runner-up of the year is AEW Double or Nothing. This is probably one of the most significant shows of the year, because one, it had probably the most emotional match of the year, which is Cody and Dustin, which was an incredible story.
I think that's the thing. It's a masterclass in wrestling storytelling.
Absolutely.
It's not a masterclass in the art of movement, or in the art of like
that goes to Ospreay
doing a move. It is literally just, how do you convey emotion through wrestling? And that is exactly what this match did.
Exactly. And that plus things like Jericho and Omega. And you had the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Bros for the AAA tag titles. There's some great wrestling on this card. But it's so significant because it's the first proper AEW show. And that just kicked off this wave of popularity that we've seen for AEW. Granted, it was popular beforehand when the announcement came. But we saw this card, and people just went, yeah, this is what I want to see.
Oh, yeah.
So do more of this, please. So I think this has now kicked off the style of pay-per-views that we're seeing with All Out and with Full Gear and things like that. This is the style of the AEW pay-per-view going forwards.
Yeah.
So while it's probably in an in-ring perspective not as good as Wrestle Kingdom 13 or some of the takeovers, it deserves that number 2 spot purely for the amount of historical significance it will have going forwards.
Yeah.
Plus, Jon Moxley debuted.
I just think I think it's like they've got a very smart, interesting view on the way to run their business. I think this showed exactly what they're all about.
Exactly, yeah. And finally, number 1, the best show of the year, NXT Takeover New York. Okay, so it started off, right, with the culmination of the Dusty Tag Team Classic, which was the War Raiders versus Aleister Black and Ricochet in what would be all 4 people's last match on NXT.
But we didn't know it was the War Raiders last match.
We didn't know it was the War
We
Raiders
did
last
know
match.
it was Aleister Black and Ricochet's last match, and it was built as such.
Correct.
I absolutely adore this match. I thought it was like, you know, when it's like when they put Aleister Black and Ricochet together, I was like, no, Franken team. I hate Franken teams. And then they were in the Dusty Classic, and I was like, no. And then you just realize they were doing it to have a great match at a takeover, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah,
and
totally fine.
And I just felt like Aleister Black and Ricochet together were having fun. They did all the double cross-legged spot, and people kept going crazy every time they sat down next to each other, which I loved. I love the fact that like the other story of this match was like Ricochet was there and Hanson went, well, I'm also a Ricochet. And he just started doing flips all the time and all these crazy like dives and spots. This was an amazing match that was just like, I'm so sad those 4 people aren't in NXT anymore.
Right? Yeah. Walter against Pete Dunne for the NXT UK title, which was insane.
This is my favourite match of the show, and I like,
totally fair.
It is a very different style to a lot of the other matches on the show, and it's a lot slower, it's more methodical, but I think it's a really good showcase of like, this is British style wrestling, and it's
This is
like,
Walter.
and here is Walter, and
Yeah.
he will chop you. And there is so many amazing but simple spots that they do in this match that really put over the idea that Walter is this incredibly imposing figure. There's a moment where he just stamps on Pete Dunne's neck, like just on his throat. I don't think I've ever seen anything that I've just gone like, that is disgusting. Like that is... like it's visceral and makes your tummy funny, and you're just watching it, just going, "Oh, I think my balls have gone up inside myself." Like, and I know that doesn't protect my throat, but I feel like it might.
Yeah.
Like, I love this match. I think it's wicked.
It was an incredible match. And then it was capped off with Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole in a 2 out of 3 falls match in what should have been Gargano versus Ciampa in the culmination of their feud. Because when it started, the crowd didn't want to see Gargano win. They just wanted to see Cole win because it wasn't against Ciampa. And I think people felt not necessarily betrayed, but I think people thought, well, it should be against Ciampa, so I want to see Cole win it, and then Gargano can win it later.
And that's why people weren't necessarily like into the first fall of this match. Didn't really matter too much. People it was dispatched with quite quickly.
Yeah.
It didn't have quite the impact that people felt it did. However, from there, it became a completely different ball game. It was like they suddenly just shifted into this other gear for the second fall, in which they built and built and built and built and built and built and built, and to this point where Johnny got that win back. And then they were like, I found another gear. I didn't
Let's
know,
take this to 8th gear.
I didn't know before, but there's another gear in this car. And they just ratcheted it all the way up. And they were like, well, now that final fall, there were so many moments where you were like, he's lost it, he's lost it, he's lost it, he's lost it. And then after everything that's thrown in here, after the Undisputed Era interfering, after taking the high-low, after kicking out, after taking the last shot on multiple times, Johnny is still in the goddamn match, ducks a last shot, locks on the Gargano escape, and Cole has no option but to tap.
It is perfect. That final fall is wrestling perfection.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot find anything better than that in recent memory. It's unbelievable. And what started as the crowd not wanting to see Gargano win, by the time that final fall rolls around, everyone is like, F you, Adam Cole. I must see Gargano win this match now. And the crowd erupted when Gargano won that. It is incredible.
And it's nuts to think that then started a program very similar to the program Johnny was running with Tommaso Ciampa, but switched it all over. And then people were just like, "Oh no, I'm back on the Cole train now. Like, all I want to see is Adam Cole be the champion." They played the feud between those two from the beginning, before this match, through this match, and all the way to the sort of finale of it, to perfection.
Yeah. And it is well worth taking the number 1 spot on this top 10 list. But that is it.
That is it.
That is all we've got time for on this episode of the best pay-per-views of 2019. I guess we'll see you next year for the best pay-per-views of 2020.
So yeah, please click the videos that have appeared on the desk right now to watch more awesome WrestleTalk end-of-year content and all of our other lovely top 10 lists. I've been El Fakador Laurie Blake. This has been Chopper Pete Quinnell. And that was the best pay-per-view of 2019. Damn it.